Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is independent of Santa Cruz Guitar Company, and all opinions are those of the speakers. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break.
Well, we would like to welcome all of you to what we hope is going to be a real barn burner, and we hope you're in it hook, line, and sinker. I'm going to read a little bio that I've modified by Marilyn Stringer from, I think it's Blues Music Awards, of Catfish Keith, and we want to welcome Catfish here. Catfish is a wonderful guitarist and a fine exponent of acoustic blues. With his resonator and vintage sounding guitars and vintage looking guitars, apparently, from the thing I'm looking at, and a fine ear for weeding out old blues and folk tunes that he can rework for a modern audience, he's been entertaining people all around the world for nearly 40 years. Well, nominated for 13 Grammys and 4 Blues Music Awards. Keith also has won Blues Music Awards in 2019, along with being nominated for his 2020 album. He's been featured at major music festivals and appeared with legendary artists like John Lee Hooker, Be Still My Heart, Ray Charles, Robert Cray, Coco Taylor, Taj Mahal, Johnny Shines. Catfish gets inside a song a way I have never seen before. He finds the heart of that groove, and then he takes us on a journey. So we'd like to, really excited, welcome you all, Catfish Keith.
All right. Thanks, Richard.
Yeah,
You're making me blush, man.
Hey, good. What happens when fish blush?
I apparently whatever is happening to me now.
Tad, how's Berkeley this morning?
Berkeley, Oakland are fine. We're a little gray and overcast, and I am welcoming it.
Yeah, it's maybe we'll even see some rain here in the next couple of weeks. But
we can sure use it.
So let's get right down to it, sir.
All right, brother.
You live in Iowa.
Yeah, I was born in East Chicago, Indiana, which is kind of an old steel mill town. It's right where Inland Steel is, and everybody around there was affected by the steel mill. But luckily, when I was about 6 years old, we were able to move to Davenport, Iowa, and that's really where I grew up. I had my time into high school in Davenport, and then I ended up going to Iowa City, and that's the area that we've been kind of attached to for a long time, and that's where I met Penny. And Iowa City is a cool college town, and so there were venues that I could play back when I was just 18, 19 years old. And so that's what attracted me there. And there's a lot of great musicians around Iowa that really got me going and inspired me a lot. And then when I got out on the road, I got to meet a lot of the original blues singers from the early days, they're recorded in the 1920s and 30s or 40s or 50s. But anyway, these were the real old time blues singers, people like Johnny Shines and Honey Boy Edwards and Jesse May Hemphill and Henry Townsend and Pine Top Perkins and Homesick James. There were so many that I was lucky to be in that era. I'm 58, so I wasn't there. I mean, I was alive during the 60s revival, but I started playing in the early 1970s. So that's when I became aware of all this music. And then when I actually got out on the road and could travel around. That's when I got to meet the original guys I'm telling you about, which what I would consider them my musical grandparents, kind of. And so rather than just learn off of old scratchy records, which I love to do and still do that, getting to know Johnny Shines and Honey Boy and all these really beautiful mentors of mine really brought it home. So it brought the culture and the original experiences of early blues in to what I was doing. And I think it really made my music, just gel even more by, being connected with the original cats.
Well, that took me someplace completely differently than I expected to, because when you said East Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Electric Chicago Blues guys played there all the time. And I thought, oh, well, so that's where it came from. And then you said when you left at 6, you probably didn't get into very many of those clubs.
No, and I did later. I mean, after, I was in my 20s and was traveling around, we had sojourns back into Chicago. I don't have any family left there anymore. Everybody's gone, but that was my, where I was born, where I have my first memories. Remember the town and the huge kind of variety of ethnic groups that were all piled in together there in East Chicago.
Yeah.
My grandma is pure Polish. My grandpa is pure Slovak. That side of the family lived there. And even when I was little back there, I would hear old blues and really all kinds of music. But it started in East Chicago. Yeah.
Sure. I was blessed to see Honey Boy one time.
Oh man.
For about 2.5 hours, and he never got in tune the entire night, and he didn't need to.
Well,
he was so amazing, just so amazing.
He was a beautiful cat, and he had unique to Honey Boy is he remembered everybody he ever met and had a beautiful story about people like Petey Wheatstraw and Arthur Big Boy Crudup and all these people that you just have scratchy records of them, and maybe you know a little bit about their lives, but he would really paint, a very vivid picture of all these cats. And he had quite phenomenal experiences himself. And he kept going just till the very end. He never really retired. He played until he was 96 or 7 when he passed. And I really treasure my times. We had so many beautiful times together because we played a lot on some of the same festivals in Ireland and England and all over the USA, and we really enjoyed each other a lot. And he was so funny and so sincere, and he brought with him all of the culture from those old days. And he knew Tommy McClellan, and he knew Tommy Johnson, and he could describe what drinking canned heat was like. And there was a formula. You soaked it through white bread, and you mixed it with Orange Crush, and apparently it was delicious, but I haven't tried it myself.
Can I ask you, Keith, did you start off wanting to play blues, playing guitar? Did you start off in another musical direction? Did somebody introduce you to music? How did you get your start, so to speak?
Yeah, well, when I was a kid, and this is going back to when I was just, 5 or 6 years old, around the house, my folks had a few records. There was, I remember there was a Lead Belly record and an Odetta record and Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, and not a vast collection, but we had Joni Mitchell and Odetta and stuff like that. And I would listen to those as a kid. But the sound of acoustic guitar was always part of growing up. Like when I went to summer camp, when I was, I don't know, I started going there when I was, 8 or 9 to Camp Abe Lincoln, a YMCA camp, south of Davenport, Iowa. And, but the counselors would play songs at the campfire. They would sing, about barges and blowing in the wind and all kinds of stuff. So that, and song like Leaving on the Jet Plane, we would all cry, and because camp was nearly over, and it was, but the communication of acoustic guitar, the sound of it was there. And also I went to this hippie mass, that's what they call it, a hippie mass, and also folk mass at the Catholic Church, St. Anthony's in Davenport, Iowa. And guitars were played, acoustic guitars were played as part of the mass, the Amen part and Lamb of God and all that. So as soon as Father Grubb knew that I could even pick up a guitar, he got me into the church band. And so all those things of acoustic guitar, just as a thing to do for fun in the 70s, really made me want to play. And so I started out at age 12, and I had a crummy little Stella harmony guitar, and it was red and black with painted on binding, and impossible to play an F chord. It was total torture. And that was my first guitar. And then my first good guitar was an Alvarez Dreadnought guitar, which was actually a really nice guitar. So that's the one I really started to learn on. And the journey through the music, I first would hear finger picking from people like Bob Dylan, Paul Simon, Jim Croce, some of those guys. But the sound I really loved. I thought it was 2 or 3 guitar players at the same time. I didn't know that you could do it all by yourself. So when I discovered that was something you could do by yourself, I was like, man, if I could just get a little bit of that, I'd have something. And so that sort of set me off on my journey to try finger picking guitar. And then by the time, I got, 14, 15 years old, I was already building a pretty big repertoire. And I was always curious, where did Paul Simon get his music? Where did Bob Dylan get his? Where did Leo Kottke and John Fahey get their music? And it was through people like that I went back, and I went, I found out about Big Bill Broonzy and Mississippi John Hurt and Charlie Patton and Memphis Minnie. And we had libraries, like public libraries, that had a bunch of great old blues records in them. They had compilations like the Harry Smith anthology, they had that. And they had Memphis Minnie records and, Blind Boy Fuller and Skip James and Furry Lewis. It was just a treasure trove. So being kind of the nerdy son of 2 teachers, I loved to spend time at the library. I really did. And I would take home all these records and listen to them. And it was blowing my mind. It was, it was like, it was great music. And so I started to really dig deep. And Son House was a big figure too when I heard him. And that's what attracted me to the National guitar. And his sound, that sort of drunken, moaning, banjo and garbage can put together sound, was really what made me want a National and made me dig deeper into that deep Delta blues groove. And so that made me want a National guitar with all my heart. And the poetry in his music is so deep. It's if you ever listen to that song Death Letter.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I know it looked like 10,000 down at the burying ground. I didn't know I loved her until they begin to let her down. Yeah. And I'm 15 years old and I'm hearing this and I'm like, wow. So it profoundly affected me as a young fella, and almost makes me cry now thinking about it, really. And so
it sounds like
that
you're
set me on the path.
It sounds like you're largely self-taught.
Yeah, well, when I was 12, I took lessons. Our next door neighbor, Bert Gibney, was a World War II veteran, and he had a buddy that taught some guitar. Alvin Brown was his name. So when I was 12 or 11 or 12, pretty young, I had my little harmony guitar, and I went to Alvin Brown's basement, and he taught by the Oahu Publishing Company method. So he really used all that old sheet music. I don't know if you guys have seen the Oahu Publishing Company songs, but I'd get a new song every week, and it'd be like either "Let Me Call You Sweetheart" or "Juanita" or "Fascination," "La Cucaracha," all these classics that really, when I was 11 or 12, I wasn't really into it that much. But he taught me by the method. He taught me how to read music. He had a little baton, and he would point out the notes, and there'd be lines in the Oahu music for melody, chords, accordion, Hawaiian guitar.
Yeah.
So it had everything that I appreciated a lot later. But at that time, I took lessons for about a year and got an impressive book of Oahu Publishing Company music. But it was really kind of dry. And really, I got kind of bored with it at 12 years old. And I asked my folks, can I stop these lessons? And I just put it aside for about a year. So as time goes on, I remember going to a party. This woman that I knew, I guess then I'd be 14, but this woman was at a party, and she was probably 15 or 16. But anyway, she had a guitar, and she was just making songs up. Another revelation. I didn't know you could just make things up. And I was like, So it sort of set the light bulb off in my mind to get the guitar back out. And I had a bunch of chord books of, Simon and Garfunkel and Mel Bay books and all kinds of stuff. So I studied with the books and was teaching myself, me and Julio down by the schoolyard and all this kind of thing. But when I got into finger picking, I discovered Kicking Mule Records. Yep. And that was like about the only resource way back then. And I would mail order the LPs, and they'd come with a tablature book. And so it was a little bit of a roadmap to show me, what open D tuning is, or how to pick those alternating basses. And really there were a lot of really great musicians on there that had very complex music that they were presenting, that you could learn them from the transcriptions if you wanted to. And I did some, but really it was a roadmap to open up the world so I could, go into dadgad tuning or G minor tuning. And it really showed me how to play bottleneck a little bit. It really opened up, Stefan Grossman's label opened that whole world up. So coupled with my own curiosity and desire to go find records, I kept doing that. And I kept building up big repertoires of blues songs. I'd land on like Big Bill Brunsey, and I probably learned, a dozen of his pieces. And Blind Blake, I went nuts about him, and Charlie Patton and Skip James, and man, there's John Fahey, I loved his music. Leo Kottke, before I got into all this country blues, I was playing Leo Kottke songs kind of by ear, note for note, as I could hear them. So I had a lot of instrumental stuff going already, but when I got into blues, I realized I should try to sing too, and make the whole music. And so that's been the journey that kind of got me started. And 40 years later, it continues to be my sort of quest. It's like the eternal digging in the mystery treasure trove, because it's really kind of endless. I mean, I've been collecting and absorbing music for years, but man, I always find something new. That there's so much great music and guys that, men and women that might have only recorded a song or two, like Kid Bailey. He only recorded 2 songs, and maybe he was, you know, Willie Brown. They don't know, and all this kind of nerd mystery stuff that I just love it, and it really inspires me so much still, and so that's kind of how I got started.
I think
That's amazing.
I think it's the best public service announcement I've ever heard for public libraries.
Oh yeah.
First of all, you know. Secondly, is there a song called Mr. Grubb?
Mr. Grubb.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Father Grubb, he was
Yeah,
kind of
is there a Father Grubb
figure?
Yeah.
He was a historic figure, and he actually married me and Penny later on.
Cool.
That would be when I was 26, and so fast forward a few years, he actually did our ceremony out in the country on a beautiful spring day in 1988, and
Nice.
he was an amazing cat.
Yeah.
And a really kind of a historic figure in a lot of things around this part of the country, but as a part of, you know, the civil rights and just he was a figure in history that was important, and we were lucky to know him, and he got me in the church band when I was just, I don't know, 13 or 14, and it was an amazing connection we had with Father Grubb. And he used to drive a light blue Camaro with the license plate that's Boy on them. And he was such a character, and he wore these big colorful vestments with rainbows and peace signs and all this. And wow, he was a real cat, man.
Wow, what a blessing to have that in your life. Yeah, what a blessing.
Very cool.
It sounds like most of the stuff came mail order. You know, most of the music came mail order. I had a really wild experience for about 1.5 years where I was going back to New York a lot, and there was Academy Records on 17th Street, and they would have guys standing at the door, and people would walk up with shopping bags full of records and CDs, and there'd be one guy standing there, and he'd put them on a table, and he'd go $1, $2, $1, $2. They'd hand them to somebody else, and they'd put stickers on them of $4 or $6. And if you went in there 7 days in a row, the blues section would totally transform every 7 days. And, you know, I just, as many as I could put in my suitcase every trip.
Wow.
So, yeah, you know, just, and all these, yeah. And most of them came from Europe, you know, where they would print 1,000 CDs of somebody or 500 CDs of somebody and call it a big deal, you know, so.
Right. Well, sources, not only would I remember directly mail ordering from Tacoma Records and Kicking Mule Records, but there was a shop in Davenport called Co-op Tapes and Records. They're still there, and there was a good record store, and they had a cutout bin. I would go in there, and it had the corners snipped off the edge of the record, but they had some really, and you know, it would cost half price or less, but they had some of these LPs were really great. That's where I got my Son House record, and they had David Bromberg records, and just all kinds of beautiful stuff at the Co-op Tapes and Records. So that was another place. And then as years went on, I got to know a lot of blues record collectors, where I would go to their house and ask them and say, do you have any Barbecue Bob records? And he'd say, well, yes, of course. And he put them on, and I had a boom box. It was big. It was about that big and took about 100 D-size batteries. And so I'd load it up with batteries, but it would record on cassette. So when my collector friends would play the records, I would record it on cassette. And I did that with the records I got from the library too. So I would drive around in this 73 Oldsmobile that used to be my grandma's car. And I had that big boom box right next to me and a whole bunch of cassette tapes that I put together myself. And I would, drive along, smoke a joint, and listen to, Tommy McClellan or Six Cylinder Smith or, people like that I just felt like I was unlocking a real treasure trove. And it was really amazing. And I still remember all that music.
It raises an interesting question. Do you think that access to some of these early artists and some of their songs is more available now that we have the internet and all this high-speed information transfer?
Absolutely.
So that would, okay.
I mean, just go on YouTube. You can find anything on there. And almost anything, but really it's exhaustive. So that can replace having to dig out your records and put them on the player and spin it however many RPMs they need. So I'm more likely to go on my laptop and look up, Blind Boy Fuller or any of these cats that. But they're all. It's always there. So I think a lot of the collectors of that music would make YouTube videos of them, and then the companies, like CD Baby, and they're connected to so many companies, but they also make videos of all their artists' songs. That's all just kind of automatically put out there. So it just goes on forever. So it's easy to access. When I was a kid, it took a bit more determination to find it. It was a real search, and to find a friend that would let you come over and play those records and record them on the boom box. That was an amazing thing to be able to do. And it was really my most treasured things were those cassette tapes. And it's really how I learned so much music. Yeah. So it's way easier now.
It's really amusing to me because I went through a phase like that too, where I had a lot of friends who were going to university and they had these collections of records. And I would just borrow them and tape them. So I have a huge collection of cassette tapes that my wife desperately wishes I would throw away at this point, since everything's online.
Don't do it. You'll want that cassette sometime.
Just have to find a cassette player.
So you travel all the time.
Well,
and COVID, and COVID has kind of shut the door on that for a whole bunch of people. What are you doing to stay in that?
Well, I tell you, everything seemed to be going so well. Like February, we found out we'd be on these incredible tours with the biggest rock star in the world, and all this stuff was going along. And I was building up a better tour than ever in the UK in October and November. And by March, things started to go, it all kicked in. And as the months have gone by, it's clear that it's going to take a while. So the actual gigging, I'm planning for 2021 as much as I can, but it's hard. Like usually when the leaves are turning, we're on a plane flying overseas, and through the summer, we could have gone any number of places. You know, we've gone to Europe, you know, France, Portugal, Holland, Belgium, so many of the European countries. Biggest and most consistent place to do tours would be the UK and Ireland. We've done, it would have been our 51st tour this fall in the UK. Wow. We started going in '92 and Ireland as well. And so that all, for this year, we're having to just postpone it because the venues are required to be closed. And some of them are opening where people are 6 feet apart. And it's been devastating to the music business. But what I try to do is just keep playing the guitars. You can kind of see the guitar room here. So I got a lot of fun toys, and I'm making, I have a new record that is going to be out soon. It's called Blues at Midnight, and it's almost finalized. And so I keep the process going of making the music, making the albums. We're videotaping things. We've done, you know, some streaming things. And this is my first Zoom thing. So as long as all these avenues are open and we're invited to do them, we'll do that. And we'll keep making videos too, because then you have a nice video. You don't have to depend on the technology. We were living in Mexico when the pandemic hit. So we were there late January through 4th of July. We finally flew home, but down there, the internet's not that great. So we attempted live streaming, but it just didn't work. And so we made a video or two, and you know, you kind of have to just try and have outlet for your creativity. But I keep building songs. I'm always building a repertoire for the next album, and always having fun with the guitars. There's a lot of them, as you can see. I think what happened was when I had 2 guitars that I toured with in the early days. I had a 1930 National, which I still have back here, and I had a 1927 Gibson Nick Lucas Special. That was my good acoustic guitar. So we were doing all this touring with the vintage guitars, and what happens in life if you tour with guitars is, you know, something happened, like I dropped the National in the ocean one time.
Oh,
don't ever do that, folks. Don't
yeah.
do that. And the Nick Lucas got damaged. I asked for the bridge to be worked on a little, and the repair guy broke the truss rod. I didn't ask him to do that. So these heartbreaking things with these vintage guitars that I had such an attachment to, because they were real. It was really, they were me. This is part of my body, and they break. So what do? What happens when you break your tool? When you break your hammer, you get another hammer. So so that sort of started my quest to always keep getting guitars, because I was so heartbroken when I broke my old Nick Lucas, and I was devastated when my National went in the ocean. So
we're assuming both of them have been fully restored.
Well, the National has. The Nick Lucas, I should have some things done, but I still have them both, and they're still great guitars. But that sent me on the journey of discovering modern luthiers that build in a vintage style. So along that way, I ended up building relationships with a lot of really great luthiers that are really the best of the golden age luthiers that build in a vintage style. Like I have a Ralph Bound guitar. I'll show you this one. It's a 12 string. I'll show you the headstock first, if you can see that.
Yeah.
And it's a Stella body shape.
He's an English luthier, isn't he?
Beautiful, beautiful guitar. But Ralph Bound in England built that one. So that's my 12 string. And this is one built by, it looks like the old Nick Lucas, but it's built by Dale Fairbanks. So Fairbanks guitars, he's a wonderful, wonderful luthier that does stuff in the old Gibson style. That's beautiful, beautiful. And another cool cat is Tony Klassen. He's Arc New Era. And look at this. Doesn't it look like a 1930 Kell Croydon? It's a Kell Klassen. And look at the little jaunty little rectangles dancing up the mother of pearl fingerboard, and check out the scene. Isn't that something?
Kind of like a Century of Progress on steroids.
Yeah. They're built in the exact same era, but these were featherlight builds. So there's these. Oh, I got to show you another one. A very important luthier named Todd Cambio. This is a Fraulini guitar, and look at this guitar. It's a parlor guitar, sort of inspired by the early Italian guys. Gallianos, and but he's in Madison, Wisconsin. Look at the headstock. Isn't that something? And so that's Fraulini. That's kind of what led me to nationals. Of course, I got all kinds of nationals, but this is my latest one. That's it's the, if you can see the exploding palm pattern on it. It's my baritone tricone. So, and I'll give you, I'm kind of up close, but at least you can see some detail. So this really captures, and look at the inlays, look at the Roman numerals. This is very 1938 reproduction vintage, but it's a baritone guitar, so it's huge sounding. And so I've been working with National since the late 90s, and do a lot with those guys. But that all builds up to Santa Cruz, which is what we're talking about here today. And I want to show you my Catfish Special. I'll show you the headstock first. If you can see, you can see the little fish guy. That's my Fishtail Records logo that was done by Jimmy Wingert. And if you look up the fingerboard, you'll see the little bubbles floating up the fingerboard. And then the incredible wood of this single O size guitar. This is a shimmering mahogany that comes from Guatemala. And I'll show you the back too. Look at this burst.
That's beautiful.
Just incredible. And this is really, it's about the finest guitar. I have a lot of really great guitars, but there's so much about this guitar that is incredible. And the story of meeting Richard Hoover, I had been going to NAMM, the NAMM show in Anaheim, and it was in Los Angeles once many years ago, but in Anaheim, the Winter NAMM show, I'd go with National. And I've been working with those guys since when I first met them in 1997. So I did quite a few NAMM shows over the years, and it was really cool. And you, of course, you're hanging out, and there's Prince. There goes Slash. Hey, it's Stevie Wonder, and wow, and Dwayne Eddy. There's Dwayne Eddy, and so it's an incredible. You hear the twang in your head, So it was incredible. And so we always would have so much fun at NAMM. And that's when we first met Richard Hoover, because the area down in Hall E, which is the lower level, it's not the 5 football fields long main level, which is total cacophony. Like 1,000 bass players playing at once, 1,000 trumpet players playing at once, 1,000 drummers playing at once. But down in that Hall E, I mean, it's still cacophony, but it's more like there's Froggy Bottom and Loudon and Breedlove and Santa Cruz and Dana Bourgeois and Husson Dalton and Deering and National. So that's where I first got to meet Richard Hoover. And I always loved that guy. He was always so inspirational. You guys know, you've talked to him, but he is so charming and brings so much love and dedication. And he's one of my hero human beings. And the quality of the guitars, the more I'd come back and try them out, it's like, man, these are incredible. And we got to know each other over the years, but finally, I guess it was in 2015, me and Penny were walking by, and they had their lineup of guitars, and there was one that was all mahogany, not this fancy, but it was Don Edwards' model, the Cowboy Singer, they call that guitar. So it slightly bigger body shape than this, but it was a small body guitar. It was all mahogany, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head. Like, oh man, let's try that guitar. So I tried it out, and I loved it. And I always loved mahogany guitars. But I have so many that are mahogany back and sides. Most of them probably the wood body guitars. And but the all mahogany, the way Santa Cruz did it, it was like, whoa, listen to this. And it wasn't that sort of, I've played a few all mahogany guitars that were sort of mid-rangey and weren't really that great. But the Santa Cruz, it was like, it was wonderful. And so a light bulb went off and said, man, why don't let's try a guitar, And we had meetings with Richard, and we went to in fact, we've had a couple of his great factory tours. And in one of those tours, we saw guitars that were, almost ready. And there was one that was, it was a more figured mahogany than this. It was sort of stripier, but it was like, what about that wood, Richard? And then he took me to this secret wood pile.
The secret stash.
Yeah, and he pulled out some boards, and these Catfish Special guitars are made of this wood, and I think he got the wood in Guatemala. So, and so all these Catfish Specials, and I think they've made a lot of them, but they're all this sort of magic wavy figured mahogany wood, and with the full body, don't really think it's a sunburst, but it is kind of a burst they do on the finish. So, but just a jaw-dropping guitar, and we kind of came to, I just told him some specs that I liked. I liked a guitar with a, it's 24.9 scale length. It's 1 13/16, kind of a wide neck. And I just let them, and a little bit of a V, not much. It's pretty soft, really. It's not really, doesn't feel V-ish at all, really, but there's just a little bit of it. So, but when they presented the guitar, I was astounded, like right out of the box, it was, so there's a lot of, So there's just so much in there, just so much juice, and the more you go into it, the more comes that you get from it. So it's an astounding instrument.
So I got to tell my little story that Stevie Coyle has a little guitar shop out in Lafayette, California, and he would have performances in the back room, and he sent out a note about, Catfish Keith is going to be playing the back room. And I said to my wife, I said, that sounds great. I'd love to go hear this guy. So we went out, and that was the night of the day you picked up that guitar at Santa Cruz. And I was blown away. It was mind-boggling to me, not just the music you were doing, but the sound you were getting out of this little tiny guitar. It was eye-opening and jaw-dropping all at the same time. And that's just like, well, we got to keep track of this guy. This is amazing.
Thank you. And the moment that you saw me play that guitar was the moment I first, really played it. I mean, when you get it, you go, oh, okay, that sounds good. But you don't really know until you do a gig with it what it'll do. And like my hair, it was like boom, boom, it was doing all that, and my socks rolling up and down, kind of. And so I was really just knocked out. And over time, we've just had so much fun with those guys. Like, we'll go to the NAMM show every year, and we were in the Santa Cruz house, and for 3 or 4 days living with Richard and Carolyn and Gerard and Christina and Storm and then Eric Sky, wow, and James Nash, Scott Law, Lisa Lou came last year, and we're just sitting around playing guitars all the time. Oh. And wow, what rarefied company to be in. And I remember just so much magic, just being able to hang out and play with those guys. And like the level of musicianship was, whoa, way up there. Yeah. So it was such a pleasure. And to be able to do that, it's a rare thing and really beautiful. And so I just feel really, really lucky that I was adopted and be able to be part of the Santa Cruz company. It's really great.
That's an amazing story. It would just be so incredible to be a fly on the wall at the Santa Cruz house during NAMM, because the music has got to be unbelievable. Somebody should be recording it and releasing underground albums of some kind.
No, it really is. And, like all of the funny preferences of all the different guitar players, like I like my guitars tuned a whole step low, and everybody was trying it out. Oh yeah, it's better this way. And then Scott Law had a baritone guitar, and he was doing all the things on his big old baritone Santa Cruz. And of course, Eric Sky all doing his genius things all the time. And then Lisa Lou, it was just incredible. And I was just hanging on tight and having some fun, man. It was wonderful.
It sounds like you were in the adult house. I've understood that some years at NAMM there's been an adult house and then kind of like a kid's house. So there was a couple, when they would take big groups of folks. It sounds like you were in the adult house.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So, new record.
Yeah.
Do you do that Did you do that the same way you did Catfish Crawl, where you just take in 50 songs and
Well,
play them?
you know, this new album is, I decided to put together original songs that I had done over the many years. So, I mean, on most of my albums, it'll be a handful of originals, but a lot of my reimaginings of old songs, and they're really kind of the way I'll do like an old time country or country blues song is to totally absorb it and like until I'm sort of obsessed with it, and then I'll go to try and play it. So it's not like I'm taking a record and trying to play just like the record. So my approach is sort of bathing in the song and then recreating to where it can become a whole new song. So that's how I've made, and that's probably a result of growing up in the age that I grew up in. There was not a million instructional videos on how to play like whoever you want to. All that's just right there now. But back then, you had to kind of use some imagination and play by ear and really absorb music and absorb the soul of the music, and then take it and create your own thing from it. So what I'm trying to get at was those original songs that I did along the way, they sound remarkably like old country blues. They don't sound like, okay, here's now my singer-songwriter material that's, all of a sudden it sounds completely different. It sounds the same as any of the country blues I do. So it really is my own songs, but they're songs from over 40 years. I just chose 13 of them. I could have crammed more on there, but and so that'll be what Blues at Midnight is about. And as always, there's a whole passel of guitars on there, and mostly solo on a couple of the cuts. One has Randy Sabine playing fiddle, and he's a great musician. And one has Peter Mad Cat Ruth playing harmonica, another virtuoso cat. I've known those guys forever. And but all the rest are solo pieces, and I was very pleased how it came together. And it's called Blues at Midnight, and it should be, in a month or so, we'll probably have, CDs, and then it takes a little longer for LPs, and but that'll be what we'll be promoting for the next year or two. And but Catfish Crawl, I was very tickled how it came out, and very pleased with the songs and the sound, and the world seemed to like it pretty well too. I'm very proud of what we've been able to do, and our record label is me and Penny Cahill. That's my wife. She's president of Fishtail, and we've been doing this together for 30 years. We've been married 32 years, but she put her full force into helping out my music career, and we've always traveled together. We always, she's always there for everything, and always part of all the decisions of what we do on a record and everything. And
is she your biggest critic?
well, she helps me do things like she says, you need to study those lyrics. No more baby, baby. You gotta study those lyrics. And she says very constructive things that I need to hear. And
Yeah.
so, but she also runs my sound during shows. And so I can tell when it's going good, because if you know, we're right in the groove and doing great, Penny she'll be at the soundboard and she'll be kind of rocking out like that. And so that's when I know I have nothing to worry about. The signal's just going right out there and doing what we want it to do, which is make people dance, make people tap their foot, you know, hopefully inspire some joy. And
well, that brings up an interesting point, because you did have a little bit of trouble with sound in Lafayette because the guitar was brand new, and I think you guys weren't necessarily had everything dialed in for a live performance like that. But talk a little bit about how you get your sound, what kind of equipment you use, and you know, the geeky stuff that the guitar players listening to this want to hear about.
Yeah, well, let's talk microphones.
Oh, we I don't really, for microphones, if we bring our own stuff and if we're asked what we want, I usually just ask for an SM57 on the guitar and a 58 on vocals, because they're consistent. They really do well. And, you know, sometimes if they have a nice condenser mic, we'll try that out. But that's always been very reliable. And we use them in conjunction with Highlander pickups, which Highlander's not in business anymore, but it's not because it wasn't a wonderful product. It is, to me, it's still the best pickups, and I have them in about, I don't know, 20 or more of my instruments. But they made the Santa Cruz has it. All those other guitars that I showed you have the under the saddle piezo pickup that they use, that they invented and put out there. To me, that's a wonderful pickup. And in the early days of pickups, I hated pickups because it sounded like an electronic rubber band, you know, kind of terrible sound. But when I think I was introduced to Highlander when I first got together with National Resophonic. And so the first guitar I got from them was called a Delphi. It's a steel-bodied guitar. It's back there. Still got everything, but that has also has a Highlander, and in the single cones, and it's a Delphi. So the golden thread that is the pickup that goes under the saddle of, like it would be under here on an acoustic guitar, it's embedded onto the bottom of the biscuit on a National single cone. And then they invented a thing called a magnaphonic, which was, I don't really know how it works, but it was a specially invented pickup for tricones. So they had those two kinds of pickups basically. And actually that's three. So the Highlander under the saddle pickup, the Highlander IP1X that has external battery. These have batteries inside the guitars. And I also use that Highlander. I use a stomping board. When I stand up, I tap my foot, and that has the same Highlander pickup is in that board. And it's a wonderful pickup because you can EQ it any way you want. And the sound is really pure, really good. And they didn't change anything in the last 20 years of the technology of it, but that's because it was great. And they're still great. And I really wish they were still around. And because I don't know, when people ask me what pickup should I use, I don't know quite what to tell them, because I was so used to those that they were wonderful pickups. And
I have a suggestion for you when we're off air, but
I saw a video of you performing "Gonna Live That Life," And I was wondering if there was some kind of stomp board involved in that, because it was
Yeah.
just, yeah, it was just, so there was so much bottom end, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking he can't be doing that with his thumb. He just can't be
Yeah,
doing that.
it's with my foot, and I've always tapped my foot. And in the early days, say up till about the late '90s, um, everything, it was all microphones, including putting the mic way down by the floor, and that was all kind of a big feedback problem. You know, it wasn't ideal, and I was playing way too hard, and I was kind of giving myself tendonitis, and I was breaking strings all the time. So as a young player with no pickups and playing too hard, yeah, breaking those strings, it was hard to keep the guitars in tune when all that's happening. So when I got onto using the pickups, not only did the sound better, but it saved my hands from falling off from tendonitis and other problems. So all of a sudden, I didn't have to play so hard, and I could hear myself, and I was saved, man. I feel like I was given my hands back, and so that was a big revolution for me, and I was really glad that came along.
What
It
about
helped me out a lot.
what about strings? What you I see you do some bends, and I hear you do some bends, and I think if these are mediums, this guy could just tear a can in half.
Well, the strings, they've on almost all the acoustics, they're a light gauge, and they're John Pierce phosphor bronze strings. So it's 53 on the bottom, 12 on the top, and all those guitars are tuned down a whole step, so 2 frets low. So when I'm playing an E chord, it's actually sounding in D. So. So when you're down that looser string frequency, you can actually bend and really get juice out of the notes that. So you can really get a lot of juice out of the guitar, and a lot of what people might call extreme string bending. And also when you do the bends on harmonics, it really, you can still bend it a lot and get a lot of juice out of that. So it's kind of become a hallmark of my style, because I kind of pepper my playing with quite a bit of harmonics, and it's really become sort of a trademark of my style of guitar, because it was never really done. You don't really hear harmonics used hardly at all in country blues music. Yeah. And so it just kind of naturally developed from me, because I've always studied and listened to a lot of kinds of guitar playing, but I used to hear this lounge player, this jazz guy that would play jazz standards. This was in Santa Cruz, California, about 1984 or so. I was living there, and his name was David Winters, and I'd see him play in the lounge, and he'd do something like Autumn Leaves, and he'd do finger-style arrangements, and people were talking. Nobody paid attention, but I was like, yeah. And then he'd do a whole chorus in harmonics, and that was another thing, a boom, boom, and so I thought, whoa. And then the more I'd listen, like Lenny Breau had a beautiful way of playing these cascading, beautiful harmonics. And then Hawaiian players would play their kind of lap style palm harmonics. So I from here and Harpo Marx Harpo Marx was a harmonic influence, and he played, of course, the harp, but he did it by doing this technique where you split the string in half. So it's you signify like that, and you place it. So you're placing it like that. So, but when you're fretting notes, you know. So you're splitting the string in half, and you're pointing with your finger, and you're plucking up with the. So that some people call that artificial harmonics. I don't like that term because they're real. They're not artificial. Yeah. I call them harp harmonics. And if you look at an old Marx Brothers, I forget which Marx Brothers movie, but Harpo actually plays a harp solo, and he was a great player. But he did a whole chorus where he was chiming the strings and using this same technique where you're placing with your index and you're plucking with your middle finger. And so Harpo Marx's harp harmonics.
There's no finger picks, right? These are all just you're just
on these 3 nails. I have fake nails. They're kind of the women's press-on nails, Kiss brand, and and you kind of get a whole box full of them, and so I glue them on with super glue, and then I file them to shape. They're not extremely long, but you need a little bit of. Here, I'll show you. You need a little bit of nail clearance so you can get a good pluck on the strings. So it'd be really hard to do that with finger picks. And I do use finger picks sometimes, especially when I play on the National, like little finger picks, Golden Gate thumb pick, and these Dunlop picks. So I'll use these on the National. I'll try this out a little bit for you. But the National requires a whole other kind of thing. It's so it's its whole world that Nationals seem to really respond better to getting that strike of the metal or plastic on the strings. And this is a baritone guitar, so it's that's also a type of guitar that I've been playing for a long time. National started making them in 1999, so I got one of the very first ones of those, and it was because I was always tuning my guitars low, and it didn't seem to be able to handle it. I was breaking strings, and I was playing for McGregor Gaines and Don Young, founders of National, and I was playing and tuning it low, like C, or trying to get lower than that. And they said, "You need a baritone guitar." I said, "What's a baritone guitar?" And they gave me one, and so that started me. And another time, that was another thing. And so that started me on the journey of playing almost all of my slide stuff on a baritone guitar. And that's been another really cool journey on the guitar.
So a quick guitar geek question. Because you're tuning down a full step, and because of the incredible percussive style you're using, do you have your action set high? Do you have more relief? I mean, do you do anything special in the setup?
No, it has sort of a regular-ish setup, and I don't ask them to make the action any higher or lower than it needs to be. It's just the sort of slackness of the lower tuning brings more reverberation and a lot more bending. It is a little trickier to keep the guitar in tune. I noticed if I ever tune up to standard tuning, it'll hold tune a lot better. And so going down a whole step makes everything sort of rubberier. And especially when I'm playing in concert, I guess I probably do a lot more, you get a lot more physical sort of adrenaline going. And so it is harder to keep those guitars in tune, but the sound and ability to bend is worth it. And, you know, but guitars, I mean, they're always, everything's moving around all the time. You always have to, you know, keep pulling it in. Like I'll tune while I'm playing sometimes if the note needs it. And it does sometimes.
I saw in some of the things I've been watching of you, I saw an example of that. And I know that it was really great to watch you do it, because I've seen Graham Nash do it, the same thing. I've seen him do exactly the same thing, you know, like completely tune a guitar and yet keep with the song. And when you were doing that, I was just going, oh yeah, I love this. You know, this is so cool.
You don't have any choice. You're launched into it. You're halfway through, and you're not going to say stop.
You're 5 minutes in. Yeah.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it does. It always helps to tune the guitar. Yeah.
You kept right in that. You kept right in the groove on the one that I saw that you did it in, and it was just like, and it really. You open this door when you make when you get there, you open this thing and you go in there, and boy, bombs could be going off around you, and you're in the song, which is so beautiful to see, Catfish.
It really, thank you. And it, I really do feel probably closer to, it's the closest to really what true magic is. When you can get into that song and people are with you and you're really going to a true spiritual place. And it's the closest thing, I think, to what a divine spirit would be, or, you know, I really feel like I could almost float away when I go into that groove. And it is an incredible thing. And when I experienced it, when I was already playing guitar pretty good, you know, 14, maybe I was 15, 16, somewhere in there. And it came to me in a revelation. It was like, it just revealed itself how beautiful that was, and how I'm going to devote my life to that. I've discovered real magic. And when you're a kid, you try things that you think might be magic. Like for a while, I was trying to learn close-up magic tricks, you know, and I'd be, I don't know, I'd build models and do artwork, and that has a magic to it. But the real now experience of being in that groove of that song, where you feel like you're lifting off. And artists that inspired me along the way, like there are some gospel artists like Blind Willie Johnson, that you really get the hair-raising feel, and Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who was always looking up, you know. And so there are musicians that if you let that in, it can really just make your life so sweet. It's incredible.
The gospel connection is amazing, because that was kind of what I took away from seeing you at Mighty Fine Guitars, was when you got into that song, when you were playing, I mean, you transformed. I mean, it wasn't a musician playing a song. It was an experience. It was it was mind-boggling, and I never really made the connection. But you're right, it's like a gospel performance. It's really amazing.
And thank you. And yeah, I feel very grateful to be able to, conjure that up. And it's sort of like going through a door. I mean, you go from being mild-mannered human being, adjusting, making sure you're all adjusted and everything's ready. And then when you launch into it, it's like going through a spiritual doorway where you feel like you're kind of starting to float, and people are coming along with you, and there's nothing better. There's nothing better than
And you do it without a phone booth.
that. Well, no, but that part of music, that sort of you can't even put it to words really, but it is a magic thing, and it is a transforming thing. And if people can take some of that with them and also be transformed and also feel magic and all those emotions that humans have, that's the best of us. That's the best of what we can do. And if everybody could just do some of that, maybe the world would be in not quite such a fix, right?
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Catfish, you have been absolutely so gracious with your time, and your heart.
Yeah.
That's what makes it special. I mean, we're really honored to have you here. We will post all of your information alongside of this, like your website and whatever you want to send us, and that, along that line. But
Thank you.
wow, Blues at Midnight. If you haven't gotten Catfish Crawl yet, everybody should have one. I saw some pretty good merch on the site as well. Saw some pretty good T-shirts. And what's the slide?
Oh, let me show you the slide. This is made by Ian McQuee. It's Diamond Bottlenecks, and he makes them in England. If you look up close at, it has my name on it. The silver part came off a little bit, but the important thing is that it's thick glass, and it is from a wine bottle. And if you look at this end that goes to your pinky, it's curved in, and so
it fits in there.
Yeah, fits on.
Fits right in there.
So it has very natural feel. And Ian McQuee in the Midlands in England, he's the best. He makes every kind, and he'll measure everything to size, for your ring size, and he'll make all these colors and different kinds of glass and tone bars. And oh man, he's the greatest for slides. But it is a wine bottle, and nice and thick. And to me, those make the best. Gives it the sort of weepy, vocal-like quality to the sound. So that's my slide.
Ted, you got anything else?
Do I got anything?
The last thing I could think to even ask him about would be where he gets his incredible wardrobe, but we'll leave that for a follow-up question on another podcast.
Only my tailor knows that. Yeah.
That's Taylor and I.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a magical. How long have we been talking? 15 minutes, something like that. Time has just gotten away from us. So, wow.
Yeah. Well, so much my pleasure, man. And
really,
everybody love each other.
Yes.
Be good to each other. Wear your mask. Vote.
Vote.
Come on, everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
can,
yeah,
we can
yeah.
get through.
We're doing it. We're making it.
Love you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Be well.
And
All
we
right.
really look forward to you coming back out to the Bay Area. We would love to see you in person.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, I'd love to come and bless your hearts, man.
All right.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Kat. Have a great day.
Take care, brothers.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye bye.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or santacruzguitarplayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.